So good evening, everybody. My name is Donna, and I am an inveterate dreamer. I usually like to start my circles by going around and asking people to introduce themselves. First name only is perfectly fine, and giving the title of a dream, if they have a dream that comes to mind. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you want to play with tonight. It's just a way of adding to your introduction. And when I tell people to title dreams, think of a dream that you have had anywhere between first grade and now, earlier than first grade if you have a memory of something. It can be something from last night. It can be something that has really stuck with you, or something that just bubbled up in random thinking. And give it a title as though it were a story, because a lot of dream work is about claiming our power as a storyteller. So this is your story. Give your story a title. And then if you're inclined, you can give us a sentence or two about what brings you here this evening. So name, dream title, and why you're here. So I'm going to have Katie drive on this, since I have no way of calling on people from here.
So either you can type it in the chat if you guys want, or if I want somebody to volunteer, speak up first, you can unmute yourself and show your video if you want and start sharing.
Anybody? Bueller? Totally okay if you don't want to share.
I'm sorry, I joined a minute late. What was the question?
So the question is, would anybody like to introduce themselves? So that by way of introduction, we're looking for name and title of a dream, if you have one that comes to mind, and what it is that brings you here this evening.
Sure. Well, I'd be happy to go first, and clearly I'm not bashful. So
good for you.
My name is Rick. I've had a number of recurring dreams, but I think the funniest thing that I've had was an incident where I was walking on a sidewalk and there was a little baby pig walking towards me with a plate of sushi on its back. And I know this is pretty bizarre, but
I love it.
Reasons that it stands out. And somehow I accidentally knocked it over, and the sushi went everywhere, and there was a car driving that was monitoring the pig, and they were yelling at me, and so I'm sorry, go ahead.
Would you give that dream a title as though it's a story, because it is?
Wow, I don't know. I never thought about that. It's kind of funny. I've told many people, friends, about it, and we all sort of scratch our heads and think, all right, what was that all about? But I think the important part, and this may lead into what you're discussing, is often when I dream, I am aware that I'm in a dream, which is really fun. So I rarely have nightmares. I dream regularly. They're equally bizarre to the pig with the sushi on his back. But often I'm aware that I'm in a dream somehow. I don't know how or why or whatever.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love it. It's a lot of fun, actually.
Cool.
Which is why this webinar interested me. Obviously, I'm going to shut the light off. Hang on, I'll be right back.
Cool. That's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you're here, Rick. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
Did anybody else want to share any dreamoid things?
I can share. Oops, phone's on. My name is Tolly, and I had recurring dreams as a kid. I don't think I've had a recurring dream as an adult in a long time, and certainly my dreams in the last 8 months have been totally different. And I mean, I have like the recurring themes of like, I'm on a stage and I have to perform, and I'm like, I don't sing and I don't know the lines, or it's a test and I'm like going, I don't even know what the subject is. But again, those are very rare. And I too will often, not in those moments, but I too will often know that I'm dreaming. And yeah, it does become fun. Like, oh, I want to go fly. I want to go over here now. I want this to appear, but not often. And that's actually what intrigued me about, tonight. I'm like, oh, could I become more of a, like, the lucid dreamer and know more? Yeah, because I think that's a really neat element to it. And also, I very, very rarely ever dream about people I know. Like, there's like usually nobody I know in my dreams.
Interesting.
I know. And I remember either my mom and my dad, one of them could dream in color, the other was black and white. One could fly, one could never fly. I'm like, oh, flying's so much fun in dreams.
Yes.
But I haven't had a recurring one. I mean, there's only one as a kid, I remember. Riding on my brother's bike with an STP, label on it, red bike, and following the bike path around the porch of my house, and it went into the grass, and I remember following it, and all of a sudden, like, it went in two different directions. I'm like, how could a bike go in two different directions?
So that's funny. It's funny that you mentioned, your recurring dream in terms of singing, because I'm a musician, and one of my recurring dreams, and this is very common and it's very frustrating, is in my recurring dream, I'm often late for a gig that I have to do. And I mean, I've been in and out of the corporate world, but I've also been a professional musician for 50 years, and I've never been late for a gig in 50 years. I've never missed one. I've never been late from one. And yet in my recurring dream, there are things that happen that I can't avoid. That's not my fault. I'm trying. I'll be there, folks. I mean, it's that's a funny thing that you mentioned. So
the performance anxiety dreams. That's a very broad category. So one of the things that brings me to dreaming, just in general, which I was sharing with Katie before everybody arrived. I had been having experiences in my physical world, just walking around day-to-day experiences that were just so peculiar and surreal that I said, I need to start looking at these and interpreting them like dreams, because it's just too abnormal for these things to be happening. And I realized that there's, the universe is talking to us all the time. It's just a question of whether we feel like paying attention to them, the messages that come through, and the ideas that we might glean from that information. And the woman that I was taking yoga from at the time brought me to a workshop that Robert Moss was giving. And I think in the write-up that I did for the class, I talked about his book, Conscious Dreaming, which I have here. And what I like about Robert's work is that it's about empowering the dreamer. So, Rick, you might have a performance anxiety dream about getting to a gig, and Tali, you might have a performance anxiety dream about being up on stage singing or in a class or whatever. I regularly have these kinds of dreams about performing weddings, because that's one of the things I do. I'm an interfaith minister, and getting to them and having the sound system not work, all those different things. But the thing is, these are going to mean something different to each of us.
Right.
And the key is for us to be looking at our own dreams, looking at the elements of them. The ideal thing is to be journaling them, and we can start to find patterns in things. So, Tali, you were talking about, I think it was you who said that you don't dream about people that you know.
Right.
Well, so here's a thing that I have discovered by looking back at my journals. If I dream about people that I know, that's one thing. If I dream about people that I don't know, generally they don't have actual faces. It'll be, oh, that tall, blonde, 20-something guy, or, that elderly lady or something like that. But here's the thing that I've discovered. If I dream someone that I don't know, but they have a face and I remember that face, I'm going to see that person in my physical world sometime within the next week or two.
Whoa.
it's never in the same role that they were in the dream. I remember very clearly telling a dream to a friend of mine a few years ago when we were having lunch at a local restaurant. And in the dream, there was a character who was the devil. It wasn't the devil, but that's the name that I gave the character in the dream. And it was just this guy. And I described him in great detail to my friend. And my friend was like, so have you seen him yet? I was like, no, not yet. By the time we were getting to dessert, the devil sat down behind my friend. I was like,
dear.
Don't look now, there's the devil. So as we were getting up to walk out, he just kind of surreptitiously looked over. He's like, that's exactly how you described him. I'm like, I know. To me, subjectively, to me, when these kinds of things happen, it's the universe literally tapping on the window and saying, hi, I'm here. There's something bigger going on. For me, my dreams are a part of my spiritual work. And it's very empowering for me to have those little connections. So I don't have a great deal of dream recall, to the point where when Robert Moss decided that he was going to start doing teacher training, he asked me to be in his first series of teacher training classes. And I was like, dude, my dream recall sucks. You want me to be a teacher? Are you kidding me?
What was the name of the Robert Morse book?
Robert Moss, M-O-S-S.
Yes.
And it's Conscious Dreaming.
Thank you.
And he said, but you dream wide awake all the time. I was like, you got a good point. You got a good point. So
I don't know what that
I don't know what that means.
what that means is that little bit of a nighttime dream that I dreamt and the person materialized in the daytime. Or I'll tell you my bat story. So one of the segments of the dream work that I do is dreaming with spirit guides and power animals. And our connection with the natural world, and especially with the animal world, can be another layer of information that we can seek out as far as trying to figure out what our dreams mean. So I was laying in bed one night. It was during...
explained a little more in the book, because I have no idea what you were just saying.
It is. It's very much explained a great deal in the book.
Find the book. Thank you.
I was laying in bed one night. It was in one of these spells when my husband was snoring so loud that he was probably keeping you people awake. So I was in the guest room. It was the first Sunday of June in 2006. And I'm getting ready to fall asleep. And I hear scritchy, scritchy, scritch. And I'm thinking, oh, great, we have mice in the walls again. That's fabulous. Well, nothing I'm going to do about it right now. So I roll over and I hear it again, scritchy, scritchy, scritch. And I realize, wait a minute, that's not in the wall. That's against the screen next to the bed, then in the window next to the bed. So I open one eye and I look at the screen, and it's June. It's very light out. I go to bed early and I see bouncing against the window screen is a bat. Oh. And I'm looking at him. Now, I'm a master gardener. I love bats. Bats are some of the coolest creatures in the world. I'm not afraid of them at all. But I'm thinking to myself, that's really weird behavior. What are you doing? So I'm laying there kind of talking to the bat, saying, you trying to tell me something? What's going on?
You?
No, he did not. So that was the hard part. So I'm like, well, nothing I'm going to do about it right now. So I just roll over and go to sleep. Next morning, I go outside. I'm looking at the siding. I'm looking at the screen. I'm looking on the ground. I can't find anything that would be a reason for this bat to be bouncing against my window screen. Like, all right, well, I've got some cool books on the meaning of animals in dreams. Now, I will say this about any kind of book that has to do with this is what fill in the blank means if you dream it. Throw those books out. do not give your power away to some grocery store dream dictionary that says that when you dream about teeth falling out, it means you're going to die. Newsflash, we're all going to die. It's the law. Literally half the things in those books will say, oh, if you dream fill in the blank, it means someone's going to die. No kidding. You decide for yourself what these symbols mean within your dreams, and we'll talk a little bit more about how to come to those kinds of decisions. When we have an animal in our dream, what I like to do is look at some books that tell me about the physical properties of these animals, the properties as determined by various native tribes as far as what these animals mean. So one of my favorite books is called Animal Speak. It's by a fellow named Ted Andrews. And Ted Andrews is a naturalist, so he's worked in wildlife rehab for years. And he's also very interested in Native American spirituality, which is something that very much speaks to me. You may have more interest in Celtic stuff or Egyptian stuff or whatever. Go with what speaks to you. And I'm also very much a naturalist, master gardener, all that kind of stuff. So I really want to know, you know, is this an animal who hibernates? What does this animal eat? All these different oddball things. So I'm looking in Ted Andrews, and he's got some great information about bats, but none of it's really pinging for me. I go, okay, well, I guess I don't get to know. The following Sunday, I'm laying in bed. My husband is still snoring, so I'm still in the guest room. And scritchy, scritchy, scritch. I'm looking at the window, and there he is again, bouncing against my window screen. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? He's still not talking. I don't know what the problem is here. He's just not talking to me. So I share the story the next day with that friend who I had lunch with, and we do a lot of dream work together. And he's like, well, you know, in different spiritualities, bat means this and bat means that. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I researched a lot of that stuff, and it's all cool. And I definitely like those things, but none of them feel like they're it. So I guess don't get to know for a while. So the following Sunday comes along. Terry's still snoring. I'm still in the guest room. Scritchy scritch. Dude, really? What are you doing? And of course, each time the next morning I'm checking outside. Maybe we've had some carpenter ants. No, there's nothing outside that would be a physical indicator for why this bat is doing odd things like this.
And this is not in a dream. This was...
No, this is in my physical life. Exactly. This is all, yeah. And again, this is what brought me to this, because I have these peculiar things in my physical world. Mm-hmm. So the week after that, I was out of town. No odd bat things took place that Sunday. But for the rest of the summer, there were just slightly peculiar bat things that took place. So we borrowed a picnic umbrella for a picnic that we were having in our yard. And when we were done with the picnic, we put it down for the night. And the next morning I went to open it up to air it out so that we could return it to our friends. And there was a bat roosting inside it. Now, of course, it's not unusual for a bat to roost underneath a picnic umbrella, but this had never been there before. So he found it just, out of the blue. At one point during the summer, I was driving along and I looked over and there was a bat flying parallel to the car. I'm like, hello. And he went off and did his thing. My husband and I were out on a local lake with our little putt-putt boat, little outboard motor, 7.5 horse. I'm in the bow of the boat. He's in the stern. He's driving. And I look back at him and he's looking behind the boat. I'm like, what's back there? What do you see? He's like, look at that. I thought it was a swallow following us, swooping along. No, it was a bat. So all summer, these just peculiar little things. And, of course, again, I'm a spiritual person. So I'm talking to God and I'm saying, look, you got to give me some more clearer messages because I'm not getting whatever it is that you're trying to tell me here. Something's going on. I've shared it with all these different people that I do dream work with, and we've got all sorts of great symbolism and all sorts of wonder. and none of it is pinging for me. It's not getting through my thick little pea brain. So apparently the biggest lesson for me at that time was patience. Great, thanks. Can we just hurry that up? The following summer in June, just about, it was a year and a week after the first bat showed up, I was up in central Maine. My father-in-law was getting ready to pass away. I had the wonderful good fortune to stay in a lakeside cabin that belonged to some friends of ours. And the experience was lovely. I got to hold Dad's hand, and it was all terrific. The year before my mother-in-law had passed, they were both into their 90s. I was surprised that Dad lasted a year. The day that I was getting ready to pack up to come home, one of the wonderful things about being at the cabin up there was I got to park under a carport. Now, my husband is a woodworker. I've never parked in my garage in 34 years of marriage. So to be able to park under a carport, that's a very big deal. I'm loading up the car, slam the door, and again, I'm a gardener, so there are certain things I recognize. When I slam the car door, I'm at this height with the top of the car, and I say, "What is that?" There was bat guano on the top of my car. And I looked up to the peak of the carport, and there were 2 bats there. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. The first bat showed up the year before, right after my mother-in-law had passed. Now my father-in-law has passed, and I have 2 bats. So for me, when I see a bat in an unusual situation, it has to do with the spirit of the departed. For other people, I have a friend who has a power animal who is a bat, and when bat shows up for him in a dream or in a spiritual journey, then that's a guide in dark places. It's a way of navigating for him. I have another person for whom bat is about birth. There's actually Native American legends that say in the caves where the women would give birth, there would always be a bat in the corner of the cave, and that bat was seeing the soul into the child's body. So there's all sorts of different angles that we can approach things from. And whether it's a nighttime dream that we're looking at or a daytime experience that's too peculiar to deal with just as a daytime experience, then we have to decide for ourselves what these things mean. The first library program that I did, this is the 5th one that I've been signed up for. The first one I did was at the beginning of October. And we went around the circle. There was a larger group. There was a woman named Donna in the circle. And people gave you know one today.
Sorry.
And there was, the people gave the titles for their dreams. And one of the women had a dream that she just named Sunshine. And I remember thinking to myself as I was doing this, I was like, oh, Sunshine. When we were doing the advanced dream work with Robert Moss, there was a woman in our group that we called Donna Sunshine. You know, there were several Donnas, so we had to differentiate ourselves. So she was Donna Sunshine. As soon as I finished doing that circle, literally within 1 minute of hanging up from that Zoom call, my friend who lives out in Maui texted me. And she's someone that I had been doing dream work with for a long time. She had been to Gore Mountain, which is the place in upstate New York where we did our advanced circles. And she texts me and she says, "What's going on with the dreamers these days? I was just in Target and I saw 2 doppelgangers, one for Robert Moss and one for Donna Sunshine." I had not told anybody that I was doing these dream circles with the libraries. I wanted to, get my feet under me as far as doing this on Zoom. I said, well, you just gave me some good information that we're still connected, and get out of my head. But it fascinates me the way that there are these different layers of things. And sometimes there's a deep and profound meaning to it, like for me, the connection to that. Sometimes, as I said earlier, It's just about the universe tapping on the window saying, yep, there's something out here. I have a friend who's a nun, and when she's in church, she talks about God and Jesus. And when she's doing shamanic dream work with me, she talks about the moreness, which I just think is magnificent. That which is more. And that way we can all decide for ourselves, according to our own spirituality, what the name is for that moreness. But there's, whether it's our larger subconscious or something spiritual or whatever it might be, there's definitely something more going on than what we can feel with our hands and see with our eyes. We're definitely only tapped into a certain amount of it. So Rick, would you be interested in doing lightning dream work with your sushi pig dream?
I don't know what that is.
So did you get the attachment that was sent out to you by the library when they sent the Zoom link?
I did, but I didn't read it yet.
That's okay. So the lightning dream work process is a set structure within which we share a dream and then receive our non-intrusive feedback about what that dream might mean.
Oh, sure. Well, I would be very interested in that. I've had some fascinating dreams, and I actually have a good friend who I used to share my dreams with, because he would try and analyze them. Of course, he just sort of winged it because he's quite a character, but regardless. So sure, yeah, I will read through that document later tonight, tomorrow. And
would you be interested in doing the dream sharing right now?
sure.
I can guide you through it. So we can do the sushi pig dream, or if you have another dream, but just pick one dream.
Mm-hmm.
And the first step is to give it a title. This is your story, and your story needs to have a title.
Well, so I mean, Sushi Pigs seems like the appropriate title. So
Okay.
use that dream because it's,
Okay.
I've had many dreams, and many of my friends that I tell them to are always astounded that I remember them. But that one in particular was so odd and so out of left field that
It really stuck.
it stands out. I can't remember many of my other dreams other than, I mean, as I said, I've had a lot of dreams where as a musician, I'm on my way to a gig and I'm late for the gig, which is very stressful. Never happens really because I always leave way too much time and whatever. So sure, let's use the sushi dream. That's fine.
Okay. So we've got the dream title. So retell the dream for me. Just tell it as it was dreamed without any interpretive pieces, because we're going to get to the details on that later.
Sure. So it took place in a condominium complex that we used to live in here in Granby, Connecticut. And for whatever reason, I was walking down the sidewalk, and there was a small baby pig walking towards me with like a shelf on the back of the pig, strapped to the pig, with sushi rolls. I'm a big sushi eater, so no surprise there. All arranged beautifully, as you would any sushi dinner. And the pig was walking towards me, and there was a car behind the pig. Sorry, I'm just getting comfortable here. That the car was clearly watching the pig to make sure it got wherever it was going. When we passed each other, for some reason, the pig got too close, and I hit the tray. Oh, tray, that was the word I was trying to look for. I hit the tray and knocked all the sushi over on the sidewalk, and the people in the car were very unhappy with me. So I tried to rearrange it as best I could and sent the pig on its way, and they went away. And the next thing that I remember after that was that I was walking to one of the next condominiums because I needed to call somebody to try and report this incident. I mean, this is the mystery of the dream, and that's pretty much about it. I mean,
Cool.
I think.
Cool. So the lightning dream work process is a mostly set structure of questions. And the first question is, how did you feel when you woke up? Now, if you don't remember what your emotions were at the time when you woke up, what are your emotions in the retelling of the dream? What does it bring up emotion-wise?
Well, that's funny. I think I do remember actually how I felt when I woke up because first of all, I kind of said, WTF, what was that all about? And
Yes.
but I was very frustrated because that was something I would have normally been I mean, normally, that would have never happened normally, but had it happened, I would have been very careful in that situation. And so it was something, for whatever reason, was out of my control. That might be important. I don't know, but I couldn't control what happened, and I tried to fix the problem that was there. So, and those
So,
were definitely feelings that I had. I mean, I can remember that. I mean, this is going back at least 5 years now, but it was
okay.
such an odd dream that
Mm,
um, uh,
yeah.
I remember a bunch of that. So,
Okay. So the frustration was big.
sure,
So
sure.
the second question is what we call the reality check. And this is, we get to make up our own structure for the questions. And it does a few things. It screens for precognitive dreams. It helps the dreamer to start to notice patterns that might start to help you make your own dream dictionary. So it's screening for other levels of reality. So the first question that I would ask is, do you have other associations with little baby pigs?
No, not,
Okay. Okay. You said you're a sushi lover.
yes,
Okay. And you said that bumping into the pig like that was something aberrant for you, that you would be more careful
definitely.
with that. And
Right.
you said the locale is
It was a condominium complex that we lived in 20 years ago.
okay. Okay. So it was familiar to you, but from the past.
Yes, right,
Okay.
right.
Okay. Did the car or the people in the car have any familiarity?
No, not at all. That was very random, actually.
Okay. Okay. And you said that you needed to call to report the incident. Do you remember who you were supposed to be calling?
No, that's actually a funny thing. I remember that I felt the need to call someone about the problem, but
Mm-hmm.
and so I went to one of the next condominiums and used their phone because this was prior to cell phones. But
Sure.
in my dream, it was prior to cell phones. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who I called and what the conversation was, I don't know. But I obviously felt responsible for what happened, and these people were
Mm-hmm.
so unhappy, and I tried to make it right, and
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Cool. So the last question in this segment is, what do you want to know? What question do you have that is most burning for you with regard to this dream?
uh, excuse me. Well, that's funny. I mean, it seemed like such a random mixture of bits and pieces of my life. I mean, I'm a sushi eater, was in a condominium complex where I lived, uh, and a lot of the feelings I had in the dream are me. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I try to be very careful with people, and so all of that I can see where some of that might tie together. But the general storyline with the pig in the car was so wacky that that's why it stands out. But the other parts of it, I could see where they would have been in my subconscious, I suppose, because that's
Mm-hmm.
me. So
Okay. So the question really would be WTF?
pretty much, yeah, right, exactly,
I mean, that's, I would say 50% of the time when I do lightning dream work, that's the question,
yeah,
because the dreams are just so random and peculiar.
sure,
So at this point in the process, with your permission, I can give some input and other people in the group can give input as well. But
sure.
there's a
I
very
love that.
specific way. There's a very specific way that we do this. And it is really important. If you take nothing else from this evening, I
Mhm.
need you to all understand how we give people input when we're sharing information on dreams. Because I can guarantee you, I have never lived in Rick's life. I'm going to assume that none of you have ever lived in Rick's life. I know none of you have ever lived in my life. So I can't say, oh, Rick, this is what it means.
Mhm.
Because
Sure.
I don't know. I
Right.
don't know. But what I can say is, if it were my dream, this is what I would think about. If it were my dream, this is what it might mean to me. So the important thing here is when we do if it were my dream properly, we're allowed to give any information at all that bubbles up for us, and the dreamer can take it or leave it or use it as a jumping off point for the answer to their burning question that wouldn't come up if we had stolen the power of the dreamer. I once was in a circle years ago where I shared a very weird dream. I have no idea, to this day, I don't remember what it was. And one of the women in the circle said, Donna, if it were my dream, are you pregnant? I don't remember anything else from that circle. I shut down completely because she did this. She did the you thing. And we all have our buttons and we all have our triggers and blah, blah, blah. But she had a valid thing to say. And if she had said, if it were my dream, I might wonder if I were pregnant. See the difference? There's none of this. It's all this. If it were my dream, I might wonder if I were pregnant. Good. She might wonder if she were pregnant. That's her path. That's her thing. That allows me as the dreamer to take it or leave it or use it as a jumping off point. I wasn't going to take it. I probably would have just left it. But the interesting thing about the jumping off point is in the moment, these words don't mean anything to me, but tomorrow morning they make me think of this, and then the next morning they make me think of that, and then the morning after that, and the morning after that, and a week from Thursday, I might wake up with my answer. But if that initial seed is not planted properly, shut down. So, complete shutdown.
You say you might wake up with your answer. You're talking about the answer of the analysis of the dream and what it was about. Is that what you meant?
Or perhaps the answer to something else because the dream was trying to explain something else to me. Whenever we have interactions with people in general, we do well to not point the finger. You know what? If that were my situation with that traffic cop, I might have considered doing blah, blah, blah. Rather than putting our judgments on people and, youing people. So, Rick, if your dream were my dream, I would think about a few things. I would think about what kind of sushi was on that platter. Was it stuff that I like? Was it the stuff that I don't? I would think about the fact that I wanted to put everything back on the platter all nice and tidy, and it had just been on the sidewalk. So it's probably not fit for human consumption, but it might be fit for piggy consumption. Who knows? I would also think about the fact that a couple of weeks ago, I went and house sat and dog sat for a friend whose dog's name is Piggy, and he's a little guy. He's definitely not one who could handle having a tray on his back. But
the really strange part of the dream was the sushi had bats in it. It was raw. No, I'm kidding.
No, it didn't. You're sassing me now.
Sorry. A little rather dark humor there. Sorry about that.
That was very good. That was very good. I love it. I love it. But I would also think about, this is a little random, sushi is mostly eaten as raw food.
Sure.
You don't generally find pork sushi. So I hope not, exactly. And so, here's this little pig running around with sushi on him. He's definitely not destined to be sushi. Yeah, theoretically. Theoretically he could be destined to be food, but in my dream of your dream, it doesn't feel like he's going to be food. He feels more like a pet. So I would want to look at the pig and I would wonder, is he a food pig or a pet pig? I would wonder about the fact that the dream was set 20 some years ago, or at least that it was set in a place where I lived 20 some years ago.
Right.
So I would wonder if there was perhaps any unfinished business that I have in that space, or with someone that I knew at that time, maybe someone
They were
that I
all
knew.
pigs there, by the way. The people that I lived. No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
Did anybody else have any, if it were your dream, thoughts on Rick's dream? If you want to raise your hand or whatever the magical thing is, and Katie can.
Yeah, if you want to type it, I can read it if you rather.
I can.
type it.
Did I unmute?
Tally,
Yeah, I can. So if it were my dream, I would wonder about, don't eat me pigs, please eat fish. It was my first thought about, don't eat me, eat something else. Here's raw fish.
I love it.
I also, if it were my dream, I would wonder about my own obsessiveness to be tidy and like not being able to stand a mess, and how do you put it all back together? And to me, that starts to be about my control stuff.
Sure. Well, and that was actually a very stressful part of the dream. Most of it was not stressful, but that particular thing was very stressful, that aspect of it. So.
Yeah, I heard that. And if it were my dream, I would wonder about the people in the car and why the people in the car were so sad.
Yeah. Well, and they were angry too.
Angry. I beg yours. Oh,
Angry
okay.
at me. And that was really random, meaning there were a lot of details of the dream that I didn't share, but that I remember in terms of visual things. But the one thing that was really random to me was I didn't recognize the people in the car or who that was, which was odd for the condominium complex because it was a small place and I knew almost everybody there. So that's a funny aspect to that. But, hey, that's a dream. So, anyway, didn't mean to derail your.
No. Because if it were my dream, I'd wonder, who am I pissing off? I do a lot of that. I often walk around concerned about like, what are they thinking about me, which is not a very useful way to live. But so that struck me for that.
Interesting. Did you have more, Tali, or is that's it?
No, that's
it. Cool. So we've gotten a little bit of input from a couple of different angles. Rick, at this point, some people might say, oh, we're going to ask Rick what he thinks his dream means. That's not our business. That's not anybody's business. Okay. That's not part of the process. What we do at this point is we say, what will you do to honor this dream? So a dream is an experience. It might not be a physical experience, but it's a very real experience.
Sure.
And one of the things that we can do to start getting more clarity in our dreams, to, as Robert Moss says, open up the dream gates, is make sure that our subconscious mind knows that we are doing something in our conscious world that acknowledges the fact that we have had this dream, that we've had this experience.
Sorry, say that again, please.
So when we've had a dream and we want to have other dreams and we want to have more clarity in our dreams, one of the things we can do to help train our minds to remember the dreams better, to remember the dreams with more clarity, with better information, is to do some kind of a physical action to, the way that I phrase it is, to honor having had that dream. Now, some people will journal their dreams, and that can be part of the physical action. What I recommend is doing just a small thing that brings the energy of the dream into our physical world. Some dreams demand more action than others. So for instance, I had a dream years ago where I met a goddess personality and there was a bear and it ate one of the enemies and there was it was a big whoop-de-doo dream. I carry a small stone bear with me to this day to honor that dream. That was really important to me. I've had another dream where I just wrote a line on a Post-it and put it on the bathroom mirror for a couple of days. There are other dreams that I have planted a particular flower in my garden to honor the dreams. There are other things where I've just written a word on a piece of paper and put it in the fireplace. To do a physical thing to honor a dream is to help keep those dream gates open So what physical thing would you do to honor this dream?
Interesting. I'm sorry, I'm writing while we're talking about this.
Good.
Physical thing to honor the dream.
With something like this, you might maybe eat some sushi.
Which I've done probably 100 times since that dream, but haven't
Hopefully
eaten.
not from the sidewalk.
No, not generally. Okay, that's an interesting thought. Some of these things are thought-provoking in terms of maybe a bit different way of looking at some of this. I know many folks sort of do psychoanalysis on dreams specifically, but that's not what we're really talking about here, right?
But bear in mind that with any kind of approach through the lightning dreamwork process, you can go at it through a Jungian or a Freudian or any kind of approach, as long as it's phrased as if it were my dream. If it were my dream, this could be all about my id and my super ego, and cool. If it's your dream, then that's how you should approach it. Absolutely. There's no bad way of doing it.
Okay, different ways of helping you to understand the motivation of a dream. Is that
right?
that
Right, exactly.
that?
There's one of the things that you'll find in conscious dreaming is a list that Robert wrote out called 9 Keys to Understanding Your Dreams. And he talks about trusting your feelings and your first associations, which part of that is keeping a dream journal. And what I do when I write in my dream journal is I'll write on this page and I'll leave the facing page blank. And when I write out the dream on this page, I write it exactly as it was dreamed. I don't put any interpretation. I don't put any sidebars, no monkey business. On the facing page, that's where I'll put all my little notes.
So when do you do the journaling in relation to when you've had the dream?
I do it first thing in the morning.
Okay.
If I can do it before I get out of bed, that's ideal.
Yeah, so I mean that's obviously important, because once I'm up and I'm out in the real world, a lot of the
Yep,
interesting parts of the dream become foggy.
absolutely.
Not that
I
they
like
go
to
away,
say
but
that
they
it's,
become less
yeah,
clear.
yeah. I like to say it's like grasping at smoke.
Yeah.
And it's gone. But yeah, if we can write them down before we even get out of bed, that's the optimal time for dream journaling. And interesting thing, if you wake up and you sort of maybe remembering a fragment and it's not quite there, put your body in the physical position that you were before you actually opened your eyes and regained consciousness. That physical repositioning can help reach back in and grab that dream. So just a little trick there. But what physical thing will you do to honor your sushi pig dream? Not gonna let it go.
Wow. What am I going to do to honor that? That's a funny question. I mean, it's a while ago, so it's a little hard to sort of pull that back. But boy, oh boy.
The act of sharing
I think,
is redreaming.
I think something that might be a bit cathartic with that would be to, I mean, I live in the same town as the condominium that took place in, and I haven't driven through there in a long time, and it was a significant place. My wife and I had both of our daughters while we lived there, and we were there for about 10 years. So
Nice.
kind of driving through there might be an interesting cathartic experience for that.
Perfect. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And then the very final step in the lightning dreamwork process is to come up with a one-liner to sum up the energy of the dream. It's similar to the idea of titling the dream, but bearing in mind it doesn't have to make any sense at all. What would your one-liner be?
I don't know. Tali, what do you think? What should I come up with? Oh, come on. No,
Eat more
I'm kidding.
sushi.
I'm sorry. I'm putting you. I'm being goofy.
A one-liner.
Mark Twain called it a snapper. Something that focuses the energy of the dream.
You know, baby pig with sushi. I mean, that's, you know,
Perfect.
that
That's
was,
cool. That's fine.
I have so
Thank you
many
for,
friends that I've told this dream to, and they ask me about it, you know, regularly. Have you seen the baby pig again lately? You know, it was such an oddball, funny dream. You know, there
that's
was
awesome.
nothing bad about it, other
Yeah.
than that the people in the
Yeah.
car were not happy with it.
Yeah.
The experience was like, you know, it's interesting because as I said earlier, the majority of the dreams that I recall having, I'm usually aware that I'm dreaming, which is cool because, you know, sometimes the dreams are not pleasant. And, but
Being conscious within the dream is that's a very impressive thing. And
it's pretty cool.
It's illegal to count all the votes.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
oh, we
Sorry,
missed you.
my son was talking in the background. Sorry.
Oh,
That's okay.
sorry. Thought he was dreaming there.
Yeah,
So.
to be aware in the dream is that's a very cool thing to be able to do that. And do you regularly try to exercise any control over the storyline of the dream, or do you just kind of observe?
No, I just observe and experience
Good.
it, but more often than not, I would say 50% of the time, I'm actually aware that I'm dreaming, which is,
That's super cool.
it makes it fun because of course
Yeah.
not all the dreams are pleasant. So,
Right.
you know, but it does actually alleviate much of the stress of an unpleasant dream. So there's
Absolutely.
a lot of words with big syllables there, by the way. I don't know if you noted that.
Well done. Very well done.
Thank you.
It's an interesting thing. I remember very clearly having a dream at one point, and I kind of woke up within the dream. I didn't know through the whole thing that I was dreaming, but partway through, I realized I was dreaming. So I started writing the dream in my journal in the dream. I was sitting in the corner writing the dream out. This is really cool.
Yeah,
But
that's pretty unique.
unfortunately, when I woke up, there was nothing in my dream journal, and I had writer's cramp. The writer's cramp was very real, though. That was so annoying. But I have a friend who used to have horrific nightmares. He didn't remember them. He just remembered that there was monsters and chasing and stuff like that. And he would, at one point, he kicked out the window next to the bed, and he would regularly wake up screaming in the living room and that sort of thing. And we started doing lightning dream work with the little bits that he could remember of his dreams. And immediately from when we started doing dream work, he stopped having the nightmares. So I asked him about that. He said that he felt that it was that he was finally paying attention to his dreams, and they had been trying to get through to him. And once he started paying attention, they didn't need to be beating down the door anymore. But he had a nightmare at one point, and he called me up. He's like, I had a nightmare last night. It's like, you seem awful happy. He said he was being chased through the house by the boogeyman, and he went into a small room, and he holding the door closed, and the boogeyman is creeping around the door, and he's able to get the door open. And he woke up within the dream, and he realized, hey, I'm dreaming. And he towers over the boogeyman, and he says, back off. And the boogeyman shrank down to a little tiny thing and ran away. And he said, it's one of the most empowering things I've ever done in my entire life. Like, good for you.
Yeah, I've been able to get out of like the falling elevator or like there's a small hole I have to go through, and it's like I get stuck, and I'm like, wait, no, I can fit through this, and I can then fit through this. And
Nice.
And those are, because those used to be horrible, you know, like the falling dreams. And so when I can go like, oh wait, I can do this. And I certainly have screamed myself awake innumerable times.
Yes. Well, and I give you both a good deal of credit for the fact that you're conscious within your dreams, but you're not immediately going into, I have to take control mode, that's kind of a fallback position for when it's necessary.
Well, see, I often do this, like, oh, I want to go fly now. Let me go do that. You know, so to me, I am taking control over what
Yes.
can
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so in terms of, I don't know if when I'm in the falling, those sorts of things, if I know I'm dreaming, but certainly I've been, when I know, sometimes I'm where I'm dreaming, I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming. I can go do this. I can go fly. I can have this. And
There
then
you
that
go.
becomes,
Yeah.
that becomes fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in that way,
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess I'm influencing it. So.
Well, and
So
it's
one of the
finding.
things that I would love to understand, and this may not be the right venue for this, but and I'll certainly look at Mr. Moss's book, is kind of what's the thinking about what's the point of dreaming? What if there is one?
Yeah.
I
So
guess,
there
I
are
guess I'm making
a
an
lot of
assumption there, but
thoughts on that. And as they say, yes, there are spicy pizza dreams. Some of us feel that dreaming is connecting us with a higher power, a larger consciousness. There's a lot of dreaming that it's very visceral, if you will. So I have actually on my bookshelf, I have a book by Wanda Easter Birch called She Who Dreams. And Wanda had a dream when she was in her early 40s. She had been having these just oddball dreams, and she was an inveterate dream journaler, still is. And she had been having these peculiar dreams about a barge with garbage underneath it, or a ledge that had some amorphous dark weirdness underneath it. And all of a sudden, her dad came to her, her late father came to her in a dream, grabbed her by the shoulders and said, "You have breast cancer." And she's like, holy crap. So she went to her doctor and had blah, 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 blah tests. And yes, she did. And where she had the cancer was under a ledge of tissue that would never have been found with conventional mammography or any other ways of examining things. So sometimes the dreaming that we do is physical body dreaming. It's our bodies telling us something that's going on. The actor, I'm probably going to mispronounce his last name, Mark Ruffalo or however it's pronounced.
yeah.
He had a dream that he had a brain tumor. And I think this goes back close to 20 years at this point. And he went to his doctor, and sure enough, he had a brain tumor. And, fortunately it was benign, but there was a lot of stuff involved in dealing with that. I think he was a physicist. Again, I'll probably mispronounce it, but Kekule, Kekule, he dreamed the molecular structure of a benzene molecule. So sometimes our dreaming is about problem solving, stuff that we're puzzling over during the day. And when we get that skeptic out of the room and we let the subconscious mind in, then that subconscious can do the work that we've been puzzling over all this time. There's a lot of different reasons that our minds do what they do in the dreaming. And, the challenging part is that we don't always remember all of the dream. We don't always remember the important parts of the dream.
That's a strange aspect of dreaming, actually, is how little I mean, when I initially wake up, I usually remember it, or if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll remember it. By noon the next day, it's gone. And that's really intriguing.
Well, and that's also the conscious mind versus the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind has got free reign when we're asleep. And they talk about the hypnopompic and the hypnagogic state, and one is on the way into dreaming and the other is on the way out of dreaming. And during those times, we have one foot in each world. And so that's why I say, if you can write your dreams in your journal before you get out of bed, that's when you're going to have your best dream recall. That very first thing in the morning. And, if the dog's licking your face or whatever, it, makes it a little bit more of a challenge. But they say that the best interpretation of a dream is a dream fully remembered. but it's, you know, we don't always have that gift. But I
Well,
had
try
go ahead.
journaling because I never did do that, but that would probably be pretty helpful, I would assume. So
One of the things that I find really helpful about journaling is that identifying of patterns of things. Like, oh gosh, you know, every time I dream about X, then Y is happening in my life. You know, so maybe I need to think about that. I had one young woman who came to one of my dream circles, and of course it was interesting to me. She didn't want to do anything about the process of it. She just wanted the answers. I'm like, oh honey, good luck in life. But she said, every time I'm looking for a new job, I keep having dreams about running into brick walls. What does that mean?
but I could see how, you know, different personalities and different what am I looking for? Senses of self-worth. That's not the right word. I'm sorry. Self-confidence.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to say.
yeah.
Self-confidence. I could see how that would tie into how dreams would, what the outcomes of dreams would be and the frequency of certain things, like the example you just gave, I suppose.
Right. And of course, if I have that dream, or if you have that dream, or if she has that dream, it's going to be a different meaning for each of us.
Sure, right.
So I see that we are out of time. I don't want to keep Katie all night. I invite everybody to reach out to me if you have additional questions, if you want to talk some more. Katie has my contact information. I do individual work, I do group circles, I do dream work, I do other spiritual work, I do garden talks and walks. I would be glad to talk with you and play a little bit more. And Katie, thank you so much for having us.